And the chief baseball officer of the Boston Red Sox, Craig Breslow, joins us this morning. Our guy Bradfo, our guy Bradfo reported that he only got a couple hours sleep heading into trade deadline day. Were you able to did you catch up and get 8 hours last night?
Not quite 8, but certainly more than the last few nights. And I don't think I'm alone there, but hopefully we'll be able to catch up on some sleep soon.
Oh, good. We were talking before having you on this morning, and there were a lot of us who said that we wanted this team to be buyers and to do something, and you did, and you made some moves. I know Wiggy is a fan of the fact that you guys did some stuff, and when you take a look at a couple of these guys that you got bullpen depth-wise, what was it about those deals that made you want to do them?
Yeah, so I think we talked about over the last couple of weeks the bullpen being an opportunity for us to improve the team, especially when you look at both the performance but also how thin we got down there pretty quickly. And so coming into the deadline, that was a real target for us. And in Sims, we think we got a guy with real swing and miss, dominating breaking ball. And then in Luis Garcia, a guy who's been a really good setup man in this league for a really long time. He's been on a particularly good stretch over the last month or so, and I think that both guys can come in and help ease the workload in the back end, give Alex some more options. And when we look up and we get Martin back and Slayton back, and Liam hopefully is pitching here soon, combined with Kenley and the rest of the group, we think we'll have a really strong bullpen.
What did you see from James Paxton last night?
Yeah, I thought he threw the ball really well. Obviously, not the cleanest game on the defensive side, but gave us very much a chance to win. I think we saw the ability to throw a swing and miss curveball. He registered his 1,000th career strikeout. Somebody who's around the league long enough to get 1,000 strikeouts is doing something right. And I think the other thing is, given that our rotation was completely right-handed prior to that, he gives us a different look. And if we get that type of start, I think we're going to be pretty good down the stretch.
Craig, when you look at the way everything shakes up during trade deadline, I think fans always go, it's about the sexy names and, those superstar players that everybody looks at. How do you balance that act of, trying to get guys that can help you today and for the future versus maybe looking at guys that might have a sexier name but might only be rental players?
Yeah, it's a really hard balance. In a perfect world, we're getting controllable players, that can help us in 2024 and beyond. I think in some cases we were able to do that. Looking at the trade for Quinn Priester, we think he's a guy that's going to help us in the rotation for a number of years. At the same time, we've talked about how well this team had played in the first half. Today, I guess we're 2 games out of a wild card spot, but very much in the picture and needed to do something to help address some of our weaknesses right now. And if that meant getting a rental, then we had to do that. Fortunately, I think we had some minor league areas of depth from which we could deal and know that we were giving up good players, but wouldn't potentially impact our future. And so I think we were able to strike that right balance, but you don't really know until, the opportunities are in front of you.
Craig, a name that a lot of people kept bringing up leading up to the trade deadline that they thought you were going to trade was Nick Pivetta due to his success in the beginning of this season. How happy are you that you were able to hold on to him, and what went into that decision?
Yeah, obviously really, really happy. We are a much better team with Nick Pivetta on it and pitching in our rotation. I think we saw that 2 nights ago. I think what we needed to do was anchor ourselves to what was best for the organization. And if there was a team that sought Nick and the return got to a level where it was going to be a benefit to the organization in the short term and the longer term and something that we simply couldn't walk past, then we would need to do that. But I think we set an appropriately high bar given how important he is. And, we're certainly happier to hold on to him because he's on our team right now. He's going to help us win over the next 2 months.
I'm sure in all of these cases, it's about the overall value of the player. But in the case of Jansen, was that about potentially adding a right-handed bat?
Yeah, so we did not go into this deadline activity thinking, hey, we should be actively looking to upgrade at catcher. We felt like another right-handed bat was something that the offense could use. It just happened to come at catcher. And, in looking for the right guys to bring in, you also try to look at not just fits for your team, but fits for your park and complementary skill sets to what you have. And Danny hits the ball really hard. He hits the ball in the air and he pulls it. And that's a really good recipe for success at Fenway Park.
Craig, what role, if any, did Alex Cora have at the deadline?
He was a great thought partner, somebody who I would pop down and ask how he saw things, how if we were able to get certain guys, how they might be used. Wanted to make sure that we're on the same page. If we're going to go out and do what we can to improve the team, I want to make sure that Alex thinks that those are our areas of need. And so we had conversations, probably every few hours. But I think one thing that Alex deserves a ton of credit for over the last 2 or 3 weeks is keeping the staff and keeping the players focused on their jobs, which is trying to win games on the field, and allowing the front office to do our jobs, which is trying to find the players who can impact the team. And so, I think it was a really good partnership over the last.
How much of the negotiation with Alex regarding the contract that he signed involved his involvement in voice being heard when it came to the construction of the roster?
I mean, that was not explicitly a leverage point in the negotiations. I think, if anyone in my seat believes that they have the right manager in place, then they invite that conversation, right? So, Alex is in the trenches with the players every single day. He sees things and picks up on things that we can't, operating from the office. And so when we talk about how we think certain pieces might complement the roster or how we envision playing time could be allocated, and he talks through some of the concerns or whether or not he feels like it makes sense. Those are great conversations. And, I don't think that they were explicitly part of negotiating an extension. I think those are conversations that have been ongoing since spring training.
When you look at the moves that you made in light of the division specifically, Yankees got better as well. Were you in on a player like Chisholm, for instance?
Without speaking kind of specifically about particular players, I do feel like one of the strengths of this team is the versatility, especially left-handed depth, and so there are certain targets that wouldn't necessarily make a ton of sense for us. But at the same time, like you're right. Everyone who has a chance of making it to the postseason tries to improve the team, and I think as it relates to the Boston Red Sox, we did that as well.
Take us behind the curtain a little bit, or behind the scenes. What's the most difficult part that you have to deal when, especially when it comes to the trade deadline?
Yeah, I think it's trying to balance the opportunities you have to bring good players into the organization with knowing that you are trading guys away that often in the buy scenarios are young prospects. And for as much as we do know about prospects, especially our own prospects, there's still a ton of uncertainty. And you always think a little bit about what happens when you look up in 3 years or 5 years and a guy that you traded away for someone to help the team over 2 months is a star. But that's kind of the price that you have to pay to play. The more transactions you make, the more trades that you make, the more likely it is that you're going to give up really good players, and that's okay. We went into this saying our major league team deserved a chance to get better, to get stronger, and that means we're going to have to give up good players to do that.
Were there anybody that you had calls on that are just totally off the board in terms of immovable prospects that you have on in your farm system?
Yeah, I think we probably stop a sliver short of saying someone is completely immovable. I think what we try to do is balance the impact that some of our premium prospects who are very close to reaching the big leagues would provide to us versus what they could potentially bring back, and nothing came close to meeting the level of that making sense. And that's a good thing, because I think we're going to see some homegrown talent impacting our major league team, in the near term.
How involved, when it comes to these decisions, trade deadline wise, how involved is John Henry? Does he sign off on it, or is that something that he lets you do yourself?
Yeah, no, I think John is very, very supportive. He's very in tune with, with the players across the league, with our prospects, with the needs of our major league team. And I very much keep him up to date on the conversations that we're having. If he has thoughts, he'll share them. But I think, I've come to appreciate that I was hired to be the chief baseball decision maker, and he allows me to do that.
Okay.
Craig, I don't like to talk about people coming back from injury ahead of the trade deadline, because we've had to do that in years past as that being the acquisition. But Tristan made his rehab start yesterday. How's he feeling, and when do you see him getting back to Fenway?
Yeah, I think a huge milestone for us yesterday, getting Tristan back into games. And I haven't had a chance to catch up with him this morning. I think understanding how he feels the day after his first game is going to be really important. But from the medical side, I think we are pretty comfortable with where he is in terms of overall health. So at some point here soon, this is going to become a baseball decision and figuring out when he feels like he's ready to contribute at the big league level. Obviously, the sooner the better. It's a pretty significant bat that we'd be adding to the lineup, but also wouldn't want to ignore what Dom has done over the last month or so, and how he's really stepped up.
All right, Craig, thanks for taking the time. We will talk to you again soon.
Sounds good. Thanks.
All right, there he is, Craig Breslow, Chief Baseball Officer of the Boston Red Sox.
Got a Craig juicy nugget.
What? You got a nugget?
I got a nugget there. The fact that you asked the question, very good question, about John Henry's involvement, and was like, John lets me do what it is I want to do, and that's what he brought me here for. Because he kept saying, I think John, meaning like he's making decisions without having to really ask John. That's what I got from when somebody says, I think.
What does that mean? John Henry's attention is focused elsewhere.
No, it means that he's saying, hey, I'm hiring baseball people to do baseball things.
Right.
So do you want a meddling owner, or do you want an owner who allows
I want an owner
people
that
to do-
spends money, and John Henry gives him a budget and says, do the best you can.
Well, I don't know if he does that. He says, lets him do what he allows me to do.
So you think that he could have acquired any kind of money at the deadline without John Henry's approval?
I think he would have been. I think he could have acquired a guy that he felt like would be a good acquisition to this team, and if that costs money, John Henry would be
He
okay
would
with
just
that.
say he'd be no problem, just spend away.
Right, if the guy's working.
Why?
Okay.
I don't know what you want. You either want a meddling
Would he
owner?
have to hide it under another budget item?
Nope.
Wiggy, you can be
sound like
combative about this for no reason.
I'm not being
But
combative.
of course,
I listen
there's
to
a
what-
big chasm
No.
between meddling owner and owner
Listen,
that spends.
I know when. Here's what I've learned to do is when you hear what people say, they use specific words. When he says, "I think John Henry," that means
He doesn't know.
he's allowed to do what it is, and John Henry's not breathing down the back of his neck.
Right, as long as you keep it within a certain budget, like our dinner at that place down in the Cape, then we're okay.
No,
but if
no,
it
no.
goes over, then Ken's mad.
No, because you would know, hey, here's what I have to spend. Because the owner's telling me, or Ken's saying, I can't go over this budget. So
Right, so we'll bring in a couple relief pitchers.
when you drop the word think in there, that tells me that John's like, go ahead, do what you got to do. I'm going to step back and just, hey, run stuff by me when you feel like it needs to be.
Curtis, is it not amazing sometimes the price at which someone can be bought?
It is.
It's not about
In
being
this
bought.
case, it was just a bag of merch
Nah.
at spring training. It
It's
was a
about
bag-
how you
it
hear
was a
things.
It was just a simple bag of merch.
I
In
mean,
this economy?
right?
It's really about
Greg and I were walking out of Fenway at like 1 a.m. the
It's-
other night, and we were saying, man, I would love one of those sweatshirts. We could be bought and paid for just like we
no, I bought
In this economy?
I bought the sweat. It's really about when people speak and you listen to the little subliminal words that they drop that tells you what they're really
what's
doing.
actually
Just so we're on the record here, so you think Craig Breslow has a blank check with which to operate from?
I'm basing it off
I'm
of
just
what
asking
Craig
you
said.
a question.
Yes.
Okay, there we go. I think the evidence would suggest otherwise.
Well, what's the evidence?
The roster, the amount of money they're spending on the roster.
They were in on Yamamoto, so they were in and were willing to pay him the money.
Right, and Greg was in on Blake Lively.
Well, that we know. Right. We know that from the baseball people.
All right. Well, they made moves. At least.